Hyde. I started calling myself your pet's life coach a while back because of a client of mine. She called me that all the time. She's like, thank God my pet has you as his coach. And then she just graduated from that into you're my pet's life coach. And then one day I got a call from somebody who said that to me. She said, my friend recommended me. She said, you're her pet's life coach. I knew exactly who she was talking about because no one's ever called me that before. And in the beginning, I thought it was kind of silly. I just thought, oh, that's just awkward. But over the years, I kind of realized that I have always known that being a part of animals' lives and helping educate people and sharing my experiences with animals is something that I just thoroughly enjoy doing. And so I just kind of went with it. And now I allow people, I shouldn't say allow people, and now I even say myself that I'm your pet's life coach. And that encompasses so much responsibility, I feel like, but then again, also not in a weird way, because I also just feel like what I'm sharing with you is just all of my experiences. It's stuff from way back. I'm not afraid or shy to say it, but I'm 53 years old and I started working with animals when I was 14. And so it's been a long journey of me working with animals. And so now thanks to all the technology, which is really kind of ironic because I am so bad at technology, but thankful for it as well, because it's allowed me to meet more people and some of the vets that I come on. As you know, if you've been following me for a long time, we used to call this program, if that's what we're going to call it, Vets I Recommend. I used to call it that because it was all these vets I would bring on and they would talk with us and answer some of our questions and stuff. But over time, I started realizing there are so many people like myself who aren't necessarily veterinarians, but have a wealth of knowledge that they've gathered just over the years of working with animals and being very observant, which is what I think it takes. So you can have, I've always said, you can have this really amazing veterinarian who went all the way through vet school and was just fabulous at what they do at healing. And to that, I say those are veterinarians that are not just because they have an education. It's not that they went to vet school and they learned all of this stuff in vet school. It's that they are very observant people. And so they observe, and regardless of what people are teaching them and what vet schools are teaching them, their experience has taught them more. And so I started realizing that a lot of the people that I was bringing on this show were not they weren't veterinarians, but they were people who just really were intuitive and, maybe worked with animals for long periods of times and then now share their experiences much like I do. So that is why we now call it your pet's life coach instead of Vets I Recommend, although we still have a lot of the vets in our group that are going to be here. So anyway, normally I do these on Wednesday nights at 4:00. But more and more, I've been realizing that sometimes I should just share some of my experiences and my own thoughts, because a lot of times sometimes it's really hard. I love getting into discussions with some of the vets that have been on here and some of the healers. I love getting into the discussions, but then sometimes I feel like, oh, I just need to, I want someone to ask me this question because I really want to answer this and I really want to help people with this. So periodically, I may be jumping on here when something is burning in my soul that needs to come out. But still every Wednesday night at 4:00, I will be here with one of the vets or one of the healers that I have in our group. And I also would like to say, if there is anybody, including yourself, don't be shy. I know I'm really shy about that, where sometimes I want to get on someone else's program or whatever, but I don't want to reach out because it seems too weird to reach out and say, hey, would you mind, me coming on and discussing this with some of your followers so that we can get a broader audience. But I can get really shy and weird about doing that kind of stuff. So I know it seems weird to think that I'm shy, but I actually am very shy. It's really weird. And I didn't even think that was possible until somebody told me about Johnny Carson. If you're old enough to know who Johnny Carson is, apparently he was unbelievably shy and introverted. And yet he would obviously did the Johnny Carson show and would come out. I heard that he would get sick before every show. He would actually have to take stuff so he wouldn't throw up. So Anyway, if you're one of those people and you follow me and you think that you would really like to come on with me, then give me a shout out so that I could put you on, because over the years people have learned that I will talk to anybody about anything, whether I agree or I disagree, because I have, probably from my debate background, if you guys don't know, I was on the speech and debate team in college, and I traveled and competitively debated for 4 years. Been to some pretty big tournaments, pretty fun tournaments. So I think because of that, I've learned how important it is to understand both sides of an argument in order to fully get a grasp of why you're believing in something. So if you have something on here that you think is controversial, or I won't agree with you, just reach out to me and I'll put you on the show. But for tonight, as you noticed, I had written, actually, Lori did it for me. She's somebody that, God, without her, I would never do this. She's been a big help. So, but as you noticed, I put better than kibble. And I want to talk about it because it drives me absolutely crazy to contact me. So there's my email. The work email is probably one of the best ways to get a hold of me, which is the spawdogs@gmail.com. And it's Spaw, SPAW, because that's the name of my business. And that's where I derive most of my knowledge. And so that's something I wanted to share with you guys before we jump into this controversial topic, I guess. This is a hard topic for me to talk about because I recognize that a lot of my colleagues and a lot of the people that I follow have used this terminology before, where they say, well, it's better than kibble. And so I know that I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers a little bit with what I'm going to talk about, but that is probably the best way to get a hold of me. By the way, hi, Jessica. And so anybody that's on here, also, I want you to know this is your time also. So while I'm going to rant a little bit here in a few minutes, if you have any questions, just throw them in and I'll try to get to them. But I do definitely want to talk about this. I consider it a huge, huge problem. I think that we're also going backwards a little bit, which is starting to really, really stress me out. So let me give you guys a little background as to why we're having this discussion about this topic. So if we go all the way back to way back before, those are one of my kitties. Apparently it's snack time. But if you look back to before dogs and cats ate kibble, before kibble was on the market, which we know that kibble didn't come on the market until the 50s. So before then, what we fed our animals was table scraps. So they would eat table scraps, or they would eat off the farm. A lot of animals didn't live indoors, so they were catching rats and doing that kind of thing. And then somewhere along the line, it is believed that it happened because of the war, and there was a bunch of people down in the like in the shipyards and stuff, and they were eating these biscuits, and these biscuits were for humans, but they noticed that the animals would eat them. And so of course somebody wants to make money, and they decided to start making, using the extrusion process, to start making what we now know as kibble. And for those of you who don't know, I know a lot of people do follow me that are probably more educated than I am on this subject. But there are some people that follow me that are just learning, and they're just trying to figure out, so they don't really understand, because believe it or not, we actually have a generation of people now that don't know what kibble is, or even why anyone would. Like, to them, it's very strange that somebody would put little brown hard pieces of kibble in their bowls. So we do actually have that generation happening, but we're starting a new generation, which is where this topic is going to come in, because this new generation is still not understanding nutrition and believing that kibble is bad, but what's in their bowl is much better. And so then after I wanted to explain to you guys, like, if you think back what our animals used to eat, and then how they started eating kibble in the first place, was of course marketing. right? We had all the marketing teams got involved as soon as they realized, oh my gosh, we could sell this to animals. We can make millions, which turns out they started making billions. And they started marketing it, and they were able to shift an entire society into believing that your animals needed to eat this complete and balanced diet that was just made for them, super simple, and put into a bowl, and it could sit on the shelf. And so that's how kibble came about. But then, we started to there was a new shift, and this new shift said that not all kibble was created equal. So we had this kibble, that kibble, and the next kibble. And the kibble prices ranged anywhere between $20 a bag all the way up to $150 a bag. I don't know if it ever went to $150, but it was getting up there pretty high. And so that convinced people that one kibble was better than the other kibble. So you could, and I was one of those people. I was also one of those people that used to feed my dog pedigree and science diet. So for those of you who don't know, I was a vet tech for 12 years. I was a big supporter of Hill's science diet, which is really hard for me to admit and spit out, but it is what it is. But it's important for you to know the journey that I went through and to understand why I'm going to be talking about how I really want the educators in this field, the people who are like me, the veterinarians, just people who are passionate about shifting our pets' health. I really want them to stop saying it's better than kibble. So we kind of have to go through this little journey so I can explain to you why I want us to stop doing that. So going back, we went from this biscuit type thing that was just really cheaply made and put together, and then kibble started to get where people realized, okay, now we need to put better products in here, and we can sell it for more, and we can make prettier bags, and we can market it, and we can now have this kibble's better than that kibble. But slowly people started looking into it and wanted to really know what was better. And now people who've been in the industry for a long time will say that all kibbles almost completely created equal. There's some differences. I don't want to completely say that, but you now will get people that say there are no good kibble. I'm one of those people. They're really, kibble is kibble. Now, granted, you have some kibble that might be using better sourcing, might not be using preservatives, might not be using, whatever they're putting in it. So you can have sort of kibble, this kibble's better than that kibble, but the reality is all kibble has to have an enormous amount of carbohydrate in order to make it. Now, I don't want to give you guys a whole lesson on why kibble is bad, because I think most of you know that, and you can actually go out and you can look at it and flip the bag over for yourself and realize that it's bad. I think we've gotten to that part. If you haven't, if you're watching this or you watch us on the replay and you still don't quite understand why kibble is bad, give me a call. You can call me at the Spaw. You can send me an email, and I can give you more information on why kibble is bad. But what I really want to focus on today is why we need to stop saying it's better than kibble. So giving you that little kind of history on how kibble came about and what ended up happening, and then marketing companies got involved. From there, what ended up happening is companies like Hill's prescription diets started coming on the market. Those came on the market in the mid 80s, I think it was. I'm trying to look back because I remember when it came on the market, because I'm that old and I used to sell it. And I remember them coming into the vet hospital and teaching us why this was so much better. So they put the word prescription on it, but they didn't really do anything to it. There was very little. There's different ones. And so I can't really get into the individual ones because it would be forever. So they put the word prescription on it and then sold it to veterinarians. It was brilliant marketing. I will kudos to whoever came up with that marketing scam. You're probably somebody who could get involved with some pretty big scams out there. So congratulations on that. If you think that's a good thing, I think it's a bad thing to scam people, but they put the word prescription on it, sold it to people like me, vet techs. They would come in, they would buy us lunch. They would tell us why it was so good. And so now we had, you weren't a good pet parent unless your pet was eating a prescription diet. So we got all these dogs on these prescription diets. And I just thought, that's it. It's it. The animals will always be doing prescription diets, and we're not going to get them off of it. But slowly, I didn't even think that it would be in my lifetime. Once I started realizing health issues that were taking a place with our animals. And really, I had to start really diving in, and I really had to go against everything that I was being taught by veterinarians, because as a young girl, I thought veterinarians were gods. And so anything they said must be true. And so I really, really believed that these prescription diets were the best thing. But as I started getting more involved in the debate team, which I will credit to this, I really started looking at the results. And so, for example, we would have maybe an animal who had, I'll give you a good example. Actually, this is a story I'm going to share with you from way back. I had a dog that had chronic kidney stones, constantly, kidney, bladder. And she went on the prescription diet, and she still had kidney stones constantly, all the time. She was always getting surgery, having them removed, but she was on the prescription diet. So it was really weird, because I was taught that this dog's name was Bella, by the way, and she was a Bichon, and she ended up being one of the biggest reasons why I changed the way I think. And so Bella's mom wanted to have her put to sleep because she couldn't afford the surgeries anymore. And this is what the vets was telling them she needed to do. And so I asked her, and this was early on in me looking into nutrition, but I begged her not to put Bella to sleep and asked her if I could have her. And so she gave Bella to me. And to be real honest with you, I wasn't sure that all of the stuff I had been studying was going to make a difference, but I was willing to try, because her mom was going to put her to sleep and I couldn't watch her going through pain. And she wasn't that old. I can't remember how old she was, but she wasn't that old. Anyway, I took her off the prescription diet. I put her on some home prepared diets that I put together for her. And lo and behold, not only did I get her to go and never have any kidney or bladder stones ever again, she also thrived on it. And so she was a big reason why I changed the way that I do things. So now I'm convinced that these better than are not better than, right? Because I thought they were. I thought, okay, these prescription diets are better than the junk food at the grocery store. They must be, because they cost so much more, and my vet prescribed them, so therefore they must be good. Then I get Bella in my life, and I realize, oh my God, like if she stayed on that diet, God knows where she would be. So that really set me out on this journey. Well, soon after that, I have my store. I end up with this store that I still have to this day. And I sold kibble, but I sold the better kibble. And I convinced all my clients that they couldn't buy the kibble at the grocery store anymore because it was junk food, and they needed the better kibble. So I put their dogs on these better kibbles. And in the beginning, I would see some changes. I would see their energy level go up. That was the first thing that we would notice. They would have a little bit better energy. And maybe they would stop licking a little bit. Some things would happen. But pet parents were just ecstatic about it. Oh my gosh, they're so much better. They're so much better. But to be honest with you, I wasn't completely convinced they were better, because I would see small changes, but I wouldn't see significant changes. And so then fast forward a little bit from there, I don't know how many years, I finally am tired of saying, now I'm really, really into the raw diet at this point. And my own pets have been on raw diet for a while at this point. That is my cat, Batman. I'm so sorry. I should have given him a treat. So I am at this point convinced raw is better, but at the same time, I'm still selling kibble, because I have this idea that, raw is very, very expensive and not everybody can afford it. And at least I can give them this kibble. And pay close attention to this, because this is really why I want us to stop saying the words, it's better than kibble. So what ends up happening as an educator, as somebody that people start seeing me as their pet's nutritionist, and they start really paying close attention to what I'm saying. And so I now have on my shelves the better than kibble. This kibble's better than that kibble. But I'm also selling a raw diet. So you would think that talking to me, everybody would want to put their dogs on a raw diet, but they see the kibble on my shelves. And so they just assume that I've given them and this is key to this, I have given them permission to feed their animals kibble because I sell it. And so I start to have this really, really horrible feeling that as an educator, I've given them permission and therefore they're going to continue to do it. And so I'm selling these animals out basically by giving them their owners permission, which I know sounds weird, but when somebody looks to you for advice and you give them easier ways, they're almost always going to take it. We live in very busy lives, and so they're going to take that easier way out. So I noticed that even with signs up in front and constant talking, I mean, we had signs everywhere saying, I can't even remember half of them, but they would say stuff like, make sure if you're doing kibble, you get some whole fresh food diet in your pet's food. It was just nonstop of us trying to get people to do it, but they still were buying the kibble. And it was not giving these animals the health benefits that they needed. So I was still seeing the skin problems, the ear infections, the itchiness, the overweight, the diabetic, the teeth, the teeth problems. All of this stuff was still happening. And the whole reason that I wanted to feed dogs and cats a raw species appropriate diet is because I want to get away from the health problems. So I finally said, enough's enough. I can't be any part of this. And so most people who follow me know it was a really hard decision. I've had many phone calls over the years from pet retail stores asking me how I did it and wanting to know what the effects were. But I pulled all kibble off my shelves, every single one of them. So I no longer sell kibble in my store, and it made a huge impact. And of course, I also made a lot of people very upset. A lot of people said that I was righteous and, thought that I was, everybody can afford to feed their pets a species appropriate diet and that I was just this horrible person. And I can see how that probably felt that way. But for me, it was very similar to me that if Whole Foods suddenly put a McDonald's in their front store, I couldn't do it. I couldn't sell out my integrity. I got tired of looking at the kibble on my shelves and trying to talk people out of it. It just, for years, when I did feed my pets kibble, I would say there's nothing in the store that I wouldn't feed my own pets. But then when I became the raw feeder and refused to give my dogs anything, but now I had this thing on my shelf that I wouldn't feed my own dogs. And so as we look into, is it better than kibble? That's where I lie with it, is that I'm not going to feed my pets. And most of you probably know what I'm talking about when I say, so a lot of what I'm talking about is the subscription pet foods, not prescription, but subscription pet foods. Those have now taken over. And so they are now the convenient, better than kibble, which is what people call it. It's better than kibble. So veterinarians now will say, well, it's better than kibble. It's better than kibble. And to me, it's no different than this kibble's better than that kibble. And the reason why I am so upset about this and adamant about this is that as a pet life coach, I see my role in the care of animals to be much broader than what most people think. I think that we are selling out not just our animals, but ourselves, our earth, our planet, for convenience. And so we want everything to be super convenient. And I'll give you an example when I say the earth. I did some studying with some wolf experts, and I've spent some time down in Yellowstone with some wolf experts and learning about how the wolves have such an impact on our ecosystem. And I also did a podcast with some ladies who raise certain breeds of dogs to protect ranches, and so that ranchers don't have to kill the wolves, because if they don't kill the wolves, these dogs can keep the wolves off of their property, which is fascinating and amazing if you get to see it. It's awesome. So, but they raise these dogs and they can live on the rancher's property and they can protect their property from the wolves, and nobody has to die and our ecosystem is taken care of. But that's not very convenient right now. I have to feed another animal. I have to pay for it. And it's much more convenient and probably fun for some of the ranchers to just kill the wolves and without thinking about what else is happening. And so I look at that very much like how we're feeding our animals. We get this permission from the educators that say it's better than kibble. And then we go with it. And we're like, oh, it lets us off the hook. So, oh, good. Because I just want to make sure there was still an easy way for me to feed my animals because I don't have the time or whatever it is. And I do understand that we are living in these very, very busy times with lots of stuff going on. But the reality is I can't support it's better than kibble because I'm still seeing the same medical problems. And that's the whole point of this, is that if we're going to feed our pets a raw species appropriate diet, which I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about ways you can do that cheap, because that is part of the problem, right? People want to say that it's too expensive to feed. And that's the other reason why I'm really upset about these subscription diets. They're not cheap. They're often more expensive than some of the best commercial species appropriate diets I can get for your pet. And if that's the case and you're still doing a subscription diet, then the only reason you're doing it is for convenience. And hey, I'm not going to sit here and say you can't be it, but I just want you to know what you're getting into. So it's not for cost, because I guarantee that there are some really great, some really, really amazing commercial diets that are cheaper than some of these subscription diets. Now, they don't get delivered to your home, but they aren't going to come with all these other issues. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the health issues that I'm seeing, and why I think those health issues are still not why I have seen the health issues still exist. And if the health issues still exist, it's real simple. If the health issues still exist, then it's not better than kibble. So if I fed my dog kibble and he got diabetes, and then I put him onto a subscription diet or even a home cooked diet that is loaded in rice and potatoes and macaroni and all of that kind of stuff, and that my dog still has the health issues, then it can't be better than kibble. It can't be. And so we have to stop saying it. Less health issues, less vet visits, money saved should be spent on real food. Exactly, Ellen. I think it should be. But the problem is we're not paying attention to those same health issues. Let's use diabetes, for example. I'm going to give you a story of, can you guys hear my cats just going crazy with these toys? They always pick the most inappropriate or appropriate times. When I mean appropriate, I mean they want y'all to know that they're here. Hey, what are we playing with? Sorry. So let's look at diabetes, for example, okay? If I can take a dog, and if I can take a dog who has diabetes and I can put him on a species appropriate diet and regulate everything that needs to be regulated and his insulin and all his stuff through diet, and I can get him off of his insulin and change the course of his whole life on a species appropriate diet, but I can't do it with a carb filled junk food diet, then it's not better than kibble. And that's my point, is that if we still see these health issues, and we did, I have a dog that came in today. Now I'm not going to, well, maybe I am totally going to blame it. I mean, I know sometimes weird things can happen, but we have so many dogs that they jump off the couch and they tear their ACL. They go for a walk and they tear their ACL. To me, this is a diet problem. This is not like all of a sudden now every animal on the planet is tearing their ACLs. I mean, it's insane. When you think about what an animal is supposed to be able to do, hunt, run up mountains, jump off things all over. But now our animals, I mean, they just go the wrong way and they hurt their back. Their bones are becoming brittle. They've got arthritis, all of these medical problems that are happening. And I can take you guys way, 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 way back to when I was a vet tech, and we didn't see these problems. And it seems weird because when I was a vet tech, we were, kibble and that stuff was still very, I don't want to say it was new. I'm not that old, but it hadn't been around long enough to ruin each generation. And I think that's why I get the most passionate about this, is that it's not just about your dog. It's not just about my dog. It's about the generations of dogs. And because we know that they get from their mothers all of their gut bacteria and their health and all of the stuff that they're getting from their mothers, if we keep accepting that we could just kind of maybe make a food that we can make more money off of, and we allow it, then our breeders allow it. we got to get these breeders on board with feeding species appropriate diets, not subscription diets, although I doubt that breeders would feed subscription diets. But what's happening is these subscription diets, they're very easy to look at it and go, oh, okay, cool. It has rice. It has some carrots. It has a little bit of chicken, maybe, what is it? Chicken meat. It doesn't even have any organ meat in it. It looks like it has a little bit of peas. Cool. I'll just make this for my dog at home. So you get people who are making these, you're just kind of repeating what the companies were making. And then we get breeders that are doing it. And now puppy after mother after mother are birthing these puppies who are not healthy. People are getting these dogs. And it used to be, believe it or not, it used to be back many, many moons ago, we never saw young dogs with cancer. If a young dog came to us back in the 80s and it was losing weight, we would never suspect that it was cancer. But now I see dogs that are 2 years old with cancers. And it's because we've ruined their guts. We've ruined them for health purposes, for them to be able to continue on with life. And so we have to start looking at the better than kibble thing as, is it really? Because I got to tell you, back when COVID hit, so right before COVID hit, let's just say, I had probably, I don't know, this is just a guesstimate, but I had maybe a third of my clients were feeding their dogs a species appropriate diet, meaning they were eating either a commercial raw pet food that I had recommended to them, or they have done their homework and their work and they were creating their own species appropriate diet, meaning they were eating organ meat and all of the stuff that they need in order to get a good balance of food. When COVID hit, I had to close down for 2 months, and I did my best to try to get the food to them, but it was really difficult. There were shortages. It was just a nightmare. People weren't wanting to go out of their houses. So what happened? A lot of these animals ended up on the subscription diets because they were delivered to their home. I don't do delivery, so I couldn't do that. I do now, actually, but we didn't back then. So now fast forward, these dogs have been now on these subscription diets for a while, and I am now starting to see the ear infections, the arthritis, the diabetes just recently, you name it, it's all coming in. The skin problems, the chronic paw licking, the hot spots forming on them. And so fortunately and unfortunately, because it takes time for nutrition, you can't say, I've eaten McDonald's my whole life, but tomorrow I'm going to eat a salad and then I should be good. Just like getting healthy from a diet doesn't happen overnight, neither does the depleting of the health doesn't happen overnight. But the fortunate part is these clients are now, we'll call them woke. Oh my God, what is wrong with my dog? And I can look, I know they could buy it from someone else, but generally I can look and go, well, he hasn't been eating his regular diet. What happened? And so I'm getting all of these health issues, which is why I'm trying to get this industry, people like, I know for sure you guys are both communicating a lot. I have 2 people that I know are watching this right now that I know do a lot for this industry to help. We got to stop saying it's better than kibble. So what is our alternative, right? We can't just shut people down and be like, no, that's crap. You have to feed a species appropriate diet. There are other options, and there's always the option of working up, and there's always the option of just saying, look, it's your dog and I've done this. I'm not sitting here being righteous and saying you're a jerk if you don't feed this way, because if you don't, then at least your decision is hopefully out of education. But if I give you that out, then I haven't educated you. If I've done this thing where I'm like, well, yeah, it's better than kibble, then what have I done? I haven't done anything. I haven't made any change in this animal's life, which is standing right in front of me. So instead, what I tell people when they say, well, I'm thinking about buying this X, food, and I'll look at the ingredients, and maybe I see in the ingredients that it is chicken, rice, or macaroni is another one that goes in there. There's a bunch of stuff in there. Chicken, rice, peas, carrots. Those are the most common, peas and carrots, because they're cheap. And it's not cheap to have food delivered to you. So they got to find a way to get the money. So what I will say is, well, no, this isn't a good option. This is definitely not a good option. But if you're looking for something that is a little bit more convenient, then a lot of times people say, well, it's not really the convenience. I mean, it is convenient, but it's not really the convenience. It's more about the money. And if it's more about the money, which is fine, trust me, I'm not a rich person. If it's more about the money, then I will usually just go, well, how much are you spending a month? And then I'll go through my store. And I know not everybody has a store, but you would be surprised at how many small batch, for those of you who know any of the name brands that are out there that we do support, small batch is actually cheaper to feed if you buy it in bulk. And there's some tricks you can do with small batch. For example, small batch cat has a lot more protein in it. And so you can feed a little bit less of it, but you can get it so it ends up being cheaper. But so there's all these little tricks you can do. So if somebody were to say to me, well, from a financial purpose, small batch is a great option. Buy it in bulk and it's cheaper than some of the subscriptions. Hi, Lily. So it's cheaper than some of the subscriptions. So really get those dollar amounts out. If you're an educator in pet food, show them the dollar amount, because I guarantee you it's just a matter of time before these better than kibble foods are going to cause some health problems. I've seen it too many times. I know it's going to happen, and it is happening. And in some cases, it's already happening. Like I told you about some diabetic dogs that I have. They can't get them off of the insulin because they're still eating so much carbohydrate. But people have said to them, it's better than kibble. And that's what happens. Now she's heard it's better, or he's heard it's better than kibble. And so they're like, well, okay, it's better than kibble. That's not okay. We shouldn't be accepting it's better than. We're here to educate people and help them, guide them, not give, I hate to say it, not give them an out, but we can find better ways. Just we have to spend a little bit more time doing it, a little bit more explaining of why you don't want your pet to be on this food. So if you look at, I know we talk an awful lot about eggs, like a raw egg, or some people are afraid of raw diet. And so I'm okay with people cooking up an egg. I recently noticed that coarse spots of fur are now actually soft. I credit that to the nutritious food you've educated me. Oh, thanks, Claire. Boo is a success story for us at the spa, but not in the way. I mean, he does eat a very healthy diet, so I'm very, very happy about that. But Boo is actually more of a success story for me, because when everybody, this is Claire. And she has a little dachshund named Boo. And when Boo first came to me, I don't know if you know that I remember this story. I'll never forget it. Boo came to me because he went to a doggy daycare, and they told Claire that he would have to be sedated in order to go to doggy daycare, which is insane. Like, we don't do that. If your dog needs, this is going off topic, but if your dog needs to be sedated to go to doggy daycare, then your dog can't go to doggy daycare. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I worked with Boo for a while, and we weren't sure. I wasn't going to sit there and say, oh yeah, no, they're crazy, and I'm sure your dog is fine. Maybe he wasn't. So we worked with Boo for a while, and gosh, Claire, maybe you can tell me, 6 years ago, I don't know, but he's been great. And then COVID hit, and we had to start all over again. Hard-boiled egg mash every day. And I'm like, yes, that's awesome, Lily. I really, really, I think it's great. I mean, there's all these things we can do in order to, he's now that he got over the whole COVID thing, he didn't have COVID, but he stayed home with mom. Like the rest of us, we had so many dogs. We had to get them back into their routines. But yes, eggs, those kind of things, making sure, and this is something, sardines, awesome. Yep. Once a week. One thing we need to hammer home to all of the people that we're trying to educate, and you guys are all educators. Dr. Suter always calls people like me, and probably some of you guys have heard her say this, troublemakers. We're people who are willing to voice out in order to get some change. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about not saying it's better than kibble, because I think it's setting us backwards. And we're not, our goal should be, and I know it is, whether you're a pet parent listening to me right now, or you are a educator or you are a veterinarian or a vet tech or a dog trainer, whatever it is, if your goal is to keep these animals healthy and move away from the health crisis that they're in right now, because they are in the worst health crisis. Our animals are sicker today than they were back when I was a vet tech. And I know that I'm not alone in that, because when I speak with Dr. Suter or Dr. Morgan, I'm trying to think of some of the older veterinarians, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to call them older, some more experienced veterinarians. We all agree. Dr. Morgan, I remember I spoke, not Dr. Morgan, Dr. Roman, who's another veterinarian. Yes, we'll talk about cats and sardines in 1 second, Christine. But when I speak with them, we all agree across the board. What we saw in our animals being sick many years ago was we saw dogs that got hit by a car. We saw dogs who might have eaten something like a sock or a tennis ball. We saw dogs come in to get spayed and neutered, and we saw dogs that were coming in to get vaccinations. And that was it. We did not see this abundance of pancreatitis, this Cushing's disease, diabetes, unheard of, just didn't exist. So all of this kind of stuff is getting worse, not better. And so we can't stop. We can't settle. We can't say, well, it's better than kibble, because it's not. If it was, we wouldn't see the same health issues. So if you can tell me that I can feed my dog, and biologically, that's the other thing about it's better than kibble, because biologically, no, it's not, because the dogs aren't breaking it down in a biological way. They are not breaking down the carbohydrate in a biological way. So if they still can't break it down and absorb and get the nutrients from it, then how can it be better than kibble? Because that's the same problem with kibble, right? Dr. Connor, to help keep the teeth clean, it's seaweed. Yeah, seaweed. There has been a lot of research about seaweed with the teeth cleaning. And that's such a good point about the teeth, because that's another, I talked to you guys about all of the ACLs that are tearing and ripping and all of this kind of stuff. But a lot of the dogs that I see on these carbohydrate filled diets with the rices and the potatoes and all of that kind of stuff, think about it this way. For those of you who are out there trying to educate people, which hopefully all of you are, because whether you're educating your neighbor, your friend, your sister, your children, whoever it is that you're learning about nutrition for your animals and you're passing it down, makes you an educator. So if you are a mom and you want to teach your children how to feed their dogs when they get older, and you tell them that, well, that food's better. Like, let's say your kids are, I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's say you have a 16-year-old daughter and you guys got her a puppy when she was little. And so now this dog is getting older. Maybe the dog's 10 and she's been watching you feed us a amazing species appropriate diet this dog's whole life. But then one day she comes home from school because her friend gets her dog food delivered, and it is a whole fresh looking diet, right? And she says to you, well, Mom, look at this one. This one's so cool. It gets delivered to me at the house, and look, you can see all of the stuff in it. So it's got to be healthy. I can eat it. It's human grade. They tested it on humans. And you say, well, yeah, it's better than kibble. She's now going to go feed that to her next generations of dogs that she gets. And if those dogs are still going to have rotted teeth, which is what I'm seeing, I still see the teeth just with so much. And when you think about what the reasons that people go to the vet for, the number one reasons, the costly stuff, dental cleaning, right? And dental cleaning is not just about, it's not even about, I don't want to say it's just about, dental cleaning is not about cosmetics, right? Your dog's not running around outside smiling. So yeah, Claire, give me 1 second. So it's not about that. It's about the health of your dog's gut and the health of your dog's mouth, which are directly connected. So if you're going to feed a better than kibble stuff and the teeth are still going to be poor, then your dog's still going to have a poor gut because they're swallowing all of that bad bacteria. And for those of you who don't know, carbohydrates are broken down in our mouth by an enzyme called amylase. Amylase. I know so many times people pronounce it differently, and I'm probably the one pronouncing it wrong. So just know that about me. My husband makes fun of me all the time about the way I pronounce things. But Amylase does not produce, it does not exist in your dog's mouth. So when they eat those carbohydrates, they sit in the mouth and then they start to build up and eat away at some of the good bacteria. And then the poor bacteria are able to fill up in there. And therefore your pet is not healthy, because without a healthy mouth, you cannot have a healthy gut, and vice versa. So you really, really have to look at why you're telling people it's better than kibble. Stop being afraid to say, no, it's not. Please get on this bandwagon with me. It is not better than kibble. It is just a cop out. It's an easy way to, sometimes for people, I know I hate to say it, but sometimes it's just because we feel so bad, right? Like sometimes I just feel like, oh my God, I'm always the one that has to tell people stuff. And I know my husband's like, you don't have to. No one appointed you the person. But sorry, I have hair, which is normal because I came straight from work and I was blow drying dogs. Claire can attest. She can whatever that word is that I'm going to pronounce wrong. Claire can tell you what it's like coming and see Carrie at work. You could see me through the thing. All I do is blow dry dogs all day. We're going to talk about sardines here in a second, Christine, but I really want to get you guys on this bandwagon of no, it's not better than kibble, because if we don't, we're never going to get these animals. It's this movement that I want to be on. I've been on this train for so long trying to stop the sick animals. I see them every day, every single day in my shop. I see sick animals, and not just a little bit, chronic ear infections. I'm working right now on, I don't want to say I can't wait to post it, but I'm working on right now a whole bunch of different pictures of really horrible things that you may not want to see, but also the reason why I fight for these animals, because I want this to be a movement to change the course that our animals are on. And I don't want to go backwards. So we have to stop saying it's better than kibble, because we're just pushing ourselves back. And I hope I honed in on that enough for you to understand why it's important to not say it. I'm going to really try to get the vets to stop saying it, because some of the veterinarians are saying it here and there, well, it's better than kibble. At least I got them off kibble. But we can get dogs onto something else. They don't have to. It's not kibble, or it's no kibble, or. There's so many different things you can do. It doesn't have to be a subscription diet. It doesn't have to have rice in it. It doesn't have to have potatoes in it. It doesn't have to have tons of carrots and peas and crap. It doesn't. But you know what it does have to? And this is going to lead me into the sardines. Yes, your kitties can have sardines. Pretty much anything that is good for our dogs is also good for our cats. Christine, just so you know, tomorrow, I'm so excited. So tomorrow I have the two crazy cat ladies coming on. So we're going to talk lots and lots and lots about kitties. I'm actually thinking, I was just talking to Lori before I came on here. I was thinking about starting my own kitty rescue, because it is so frustrating. For those of you who don't know, I work in kitty rescue. And so I have a lot of kitties, but I work with the animal shelter. So I get calls and then I take kitties, and I have 4 little baby kittens here right now. But what is driving me absolutely insane, I just picked up these 4 about a week ago, and they already came with flea and tick stuff on them and dewormed. And there's nothing I can do about it. And it breaks my heart to watch it. So I'm considering starting my own kitty rescue, where I would just tell people in Orange County, if you find kittens in bushes, just bring them to me. And then now these kitties will be set up for the best that I can do. They're already on a raw diet. When I take kittens in and bottle feed them, they go straight onto raw goat's milk. Do we have to rotate them? Yes, and yes. Let me finish up with the kitty and the sardines. So, and this will kind of talk about both. So when I say there's so many other options, it's like people are looking at it like this now. Here's my options. I either feed kibble, which I'm pretty convinced is bad, or I can feed these I could feed these subscription diets, or I have to feed raw. And that's where people are now. And it used to be all I could feed was kibble or science diet, or Hills, or, each of the prescriptions. I got to get us out of, or I want to get us out of, these are our options. My options now people are seeing is kibble, uh, the subscription diets, or the raw diet, and take that out of the equation. Okay. So you don't have to feed kibble. You don't have to feed subscription diets. What you do need to do is feed, or I shouldn't say do, you do need to do what would be best in my experience for your animals would be to feed a species appropriate rotating diet. I can't stress the rotating enough. Okay. So I also, the other language that I can't stand is uh, a complete and balanced diet that goes in my dog's food every single day. My dogs eat a very rotational diet, and I think that my cats do too. I have 4 owned personal kitties, and then I have my 2 dogs, and then I also have a kitty that lives down at the cat jungle. So when you're talking about sardines for kitties, absolutely. But should they eat sardines every day? Probably not. Should they rotate? Rotate. It's not just protein that we're rotating. It's the overall diet that we rotate. So I'm going to give you guys an example of what my cats and my dogs eat. Now, cats and dogs are very different, right? They're not the same species. So that's why we call it a species appropriate diet, because they're definitely different. Cats are carnivores and they need to eat a lot more meat than dogs do. And one of the big reasons why they're so different is an amino acid called taurine. Taurine is your dog can actually create their own taurine in their body and your cat cannot. And taurine comes from meat. So our kitties need to eat a lot more protein than our dogs need to eat. Cats can't fast. Dogs should be fasting. So there's some pretty big differences with our dogs and cats. So please keep that in mind when you're hearing. I know a lot of people talk a lot about dogs. And that's why we're bringing the 2 crazy cat ladies on. It's why I spend a lot of time educating people about cats. But sardines are amazing for our kitties. Anything meat oriented is amazing for your kitties. I like to add in, my cats do like vegetation. And I have one cat in particular who almost would prefer vegetables over her food. And I actually think she has a condition that I'm doing. Well, I know she has a condition and I'm doing some research on it. So my cat has this condition called pica, and where she will eat clothing. So she eats a lot of clothing. Anything, if I leave a sock out, she's going to eat it. So it's a huge problem. It's a known condition, but what isn't known is why. There's some speculation as to why. And I find it interesting that that's the cat who wants to eat vegetation. So I'm really looking into the possible. Oh, she does. Oh, see, does she like vegetation, Christine? Because I'm going to start an investigation on this. I want to do a study on it because I think there's something connected to the fiber, because she wants to eat a lot of clothing. But when I increase her fibers in her diet, I notice that I can leave a sweater out, and I've tested it. So, I mean, she would go to it immediately. But if I give her, start paying attention to it because I'm interested in knowing it. But I'm really, and I'm going to talk to the 2 crazy cat ladies to see what they know about it. That's a lot about what we're going to talk about tomorrow. But I find it super interesting that if I increase her veggies and then I leave like one of her favorite types of sweaters out, like she doesn't like jeans. She won't eat the jeans. So I think there's some diet issues with animals that have it. So it's really, really interesting. So he eats primal, but pica is getting better. How old? Because some kitties will grow out of it. I'm kind of hoping mine will grow out of it, but I don't know. I also started giving my kitty some B12 not injections. I give her oral, actually from the 2 crazy cat ladies. They make this really cool B12. And so I give her some B12. And then I mix in some fiber into her diet. So she gets a lot more fiber. He's 2. So she gets a lot more fiber. So my kitties do rotation is, we're going to talk real quick about cats, then we'll talk about dogs because they are very different. My cats eat they actually sort of eat twice a day. So they eat a little bit, tiny bit in the morning. They get a little treat from my husband because he's actually the crazy cat lady. I should put him on here because he's the crazy cat lady. He's the reason we have 4 cats. So to answer your question, yeah, he's on board with the cat rescue, by the way. So anyway, my cats eat a little tiny snack in the morning. Usually that snack will consist of some little fish, minnows, some kind of fish, something. Usually I'll give them a little thing of organ meat in the morning. So they might get a heart, little freeze-dried heart or something that they'll get. And then at night they're eating a lot of different things. So, and I rotate their different proteins. So yeah, iron and calcium and zinc deficiencies have done a nutrient profile for her. Yes, and everything is normal. So it's so weird with her, but thank you. I should do it again. I haven't done it in a while, so I'll run another panel on her pretty soon. So I rotate, but with cats, they don't really need fruits or vegetables. So their diets really consists of a lot of organ meat and bone and muscle meat. And that's pretty much what they eat. Blood, I give them a lot of blood, but I do rotate. Sometimes I'll give them like a half of a sardine and maybe they're eating that, but rotating is super important because some meats, right, are higher in protein, lower in, fats, those kind of things. So you want to rotate your meats out. And I would literally rotate them out about every 2 days. So if you can have a good rotation in your freezer, because there's no point, like sometimes people will go, oh, every month rotate their meat. No. That could be a whole month of too much high fat. So about every 2 days, I go from a high fat to a lower fat meat sources, that kind of thing. And now with dogs, and then the cats, depending on, because they do need to get fiber, even though they don't eat a lot of grasses and those things, they will eat it in the wild, but they do get fiber in the wild because when your cats hunt and kill, like if they were to hunt and kill a mouse, they're going to eat the fur of that mouse. So they are going to get some fiber. So depending on my kitty's desire, some of them I will add a little bit more fiber. So I like to use all different things, but remember that when you're feeding vegetables, whether it's to your cats or to your dogs, make sure that you puree down their veggies. It's the best way for them to get the most nutrients. Now, it's not going to kill your animal if you gave them a piece of broccoli and they wanted to eat it, but if you really want them to get a lot of nutrients, you want to break it down. And the reason, like, people think, well, that's not happening in the wild, but it is, because if your cat were to hunt and eat a rabbit, she would eat the stomach content of what that rabbit ate, and that stomach content would be broken down. So we want to break that down for them a little bit. Rotate every few days. I've been doing it wrong. Oh, I'm sorry, Nelsa. You're not doing it wrong. This is just a different way to do it, just to really make sure. I'm actually thinking about creating a box at the spa where I put in that box your rotation, and I tell you, this is what we do: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. This is just an example of what I feed my animals for the week. Okay. So on Monday, just so you know, like, you do not have to stick to something like this. And I don't stick to something like this wholeheartedly, but I'm giving you it in general terms. First off, my dogs only eat once a day. So secondly, my dogs never eat at the same time, ever. Sometimes I come home, it can be, but you can find it for really cheap. There's sometimes you can find it really inexpensive. Co-ops are a really good option. Sometimes you can buy organ meat in grinds, like some of the companies. So instead of getting the cute little nuggets, you can get a grind, and that's just ground up organ meat. That's the least expensive way to do it. And then you can freeze it, and then you have some of it. Sometimes you can go to a butcher, because a lot of humans don't want the organ meat. So sometimes the butchers, I've even seen it at Whole Foods for pretty good prices. But if I can get it at Whole Foods for a good price, imagine what you can get it at a smaller butchery. But some of the butchers will, instead of throwing that away, they'll grind it up for you, or you can ask them. Co-ops are a really good option. Those are a couple of options for you, depending on where you are. So I don't feed my dogs the same time every day, and there's a reason for that. When your dogs, especially if you're feeding a once a day, and keep in mind also your dog needs to be over a year to go to once a day. So same with your your kitties, you're not going to do any fasting with your kitties, but your dogs need to be over a year old in order to do a once a day feeding. But what happens when we feed our animals the same time every day, 6 o'clock, my dad, I can't break him of this habit. I think it's more for him than it is for the dogs, but he's 85. So, I just say, okay. So my dad feeds his dogs every single day at 4 o'clock. It's such a source of stress for him that if I happen to have him out somewhere and it's getting close to 4 o'clock, my dad starts panicking. He's got to get home. But what happens is when yes, freeze-dried turkey neck, freeze-dried bully sticks. Yeah, all really, really great. So what happens is your dogs start to anticipate food. And so we get a lot of these dogs who people are like, oh, I can't, I have to feed him because his stomach, then he throws up if I don't feed him. A lot of that has to do more about the time that you're feeding your dog. So they're getting used to it. So just like you, when you wake up in the morning, if you always eat in the morning at 9 o'clock and then you go on vacation and there's a time change or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, my stomach is just going crazy. Look at the time, because there's a good chance that your stomach already knows. And so it starts producing those stomach acids in anticipation of food. The same thing happens with your animals. They start building this stomach acid and then they end up vomiting. So if you never feed your animals at the same time, if you're just all over the map, then you won't have that problem if your dog has good stomach bacteria. So if your dog also has an imbalance in their stomach bacteria, then that can also cause issues where when they're creating stomach acid, it doesn't know where to go or what to do. So they end up vomiting. So I never, ever feed my animals at the same time. My cats, my dogs, they eat when I feed them. And you think about it in the wild, right? It's not like the bunny who's going to get killed, sadly, by the wolf is like, I better hurry up. It's 3 o'clock and that wolf needs to eat, right? They eat at very random times. And so I want to keep my animals as close to what nature would provide for them as I can to try to keep them the healthiest that I can. So my dogs never eat at the same time. I feed them very randomly. It also helps for that whole, time change thing when everybody else is complaining online that their dogs woke them up at 6 o'clock when it really was 7 o'clock and they can't figure out why their animals, it's not fair. My dogs don't do that. Neither do my cats. They have no idea. So now, next, once you've figured out that you're going to feed your dogs at random time, you've decided you want to feed your dog once a day if they're over a year. The next step is, how do I feed? And what do I feed? Exactly the same. I'll say within an hour or two, like sometimes between 4 and 7. That's good. That's fine. It's just that whole 4 o'clock. You just don't want to do that to your animals. It causes stress too on you, on your pet. It's just not worth it. Okay. So now let me tell you what my dogs eat, generally speaking, for the week. So on Monday, my dogs may eat some ground up hearts and kidney and liver, some muscle meat of turkey, maybe. And they will get in that. A lot of times I will add in maybe some goat's milk or something like that into their food. Maybe I'll crack a raw egg in that day. And I'll call that a high protein diet. Like they're going to eat practically keto, where they're eating a lot of meat on that day. A lot of organ meat they're going to eat. The next tomorrow at 4 o'clock. I know, very excited. If you haven't met them before, you're in for a treat because they are just amazing. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock right here. So they might eat a really high protein diet on Monday. And if that diet was a high protein, and I noticed, I hardly really didn't put any vegetables in it. They ate a lot of organ meat. The next day, my dogs might eat some goat's milk, and maybe I'll put a little bit of an egg in there, and then maybe I'll put in a lot of fruit. Maybe they're going to eat watermelon and maybe a banana, and that's going to be their diet for Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, I might do like a half and half, where they're going to eat, let's say that my dogs are eating a small batch, and they're supposed to eat 2 patties. I might give them 1 patty of the small batch, and then I might add in a whole bunch of green juju. And so it's kind of a half that day. And then the next day, my dogs always have a vegetation day, where that's all they're eating is just vegetation. I'm a little bit lazy when it comes to this, so I do like to use green juju. because it has such a variety in there. I love that they put the dandelions in there, and there's just so much great stuff in there. And so some days that's all my dogs get. One day out of the week, my dogs are only going to be eating vegetables, and it's saturated in some bone broth, but that's it. They're just going to have veggies. I might give some fruit that day too, maybe banana, or I love giving my dogs watermelon. My dogs actually eat the rind of the watermelon, not a lot of the rind. I'll give them a lot more of the innards of the watermelon, but my dogs each get I'll cut off a little piece, and they'll each get one rind. And then the next day, maybe they'll get a giant, something more that's like like a chewing thing. Like they might get a whole big turkey neck and 2 chicken feet. So I'm giving them a lot more chewing activity that's going on, but a turkey neck and some chicken feet is still got meat on it. It's still got a lot of stuff in it for them. So they're not going to get anything else. I also, a lot of times I will go over to this little market that I have here in Tustin, and they have the biggest sardines I've ever seen in my life. And so I will get them each a sardine, and a whole sardine with everything. And I'll throw it in my backyard and let them hunt for it. So they might get a sardine that day. If they're going to get one of these big giant sardines, then the next day is going to be a veggie day. So I think that's part of the problem that's happening. We got all these dogs with pancreatitis, and I mean, it's just crazy how many animals have pancreatitis now. And, we're much like with our children, we're feeling guilty. So we're giving all these treats on top of treats. And, for a long time, people would say that pancreatitis was caused by high fat diets. You still have vets now that are saying high fat diets. And similar to the story I told you about Bella with the kidney stones, I have had numerous animals get put on a prescription diet for pancreatitis, and the dog still gets pancreatitis again, and on that diet that is supposed to prevent them from having pancreatitis. So it's interesting to me, and I wish some vets would pay closer attention, but we get so many clients tell me, oh, I can't put my dog on a species appropriate. Now they use the word raw. I don't use the word raw, because I think that a species appropriate diet can still be cooked a little bit. I know that makes it a little less species appropriate, because in the wild, which is what we model that diet off of, obviously it's not cooked. But I think so long as all of the elements are there, and you need to cook it a little bit to pre-digest, to make up for the fact that your animal was born into this world with a non-healthy gut. This is a side note, but I also think it's kind of happening with our children. Maybe some of you guys that are my age can tell me what you think of this. So I have a lot of young people that work with me that are amazing, by the way. So I'm not calling them out, but I kind of am, but I called them out today. They get food poisoning all the time. I just had a guy today tell me that he got food poisoning. Now, mind you, he didn't call in sick, so it's not like he's just making this up. He wouldn't anyway, but it's not like he's making it up. But he just got food poisoning, and he's had it before. I've never had food poisoning in my life. And I'm like, are our children and our dogs just born with like no gut? Like their guts just can't handle anything? I don't know. I knock on wood, but I have never had food poisoning. So anyway, it's just interesting to me that we get these animals whose guts are not set up, and that's why they can't do a rotating diet. Nellie, down. But rotating the diet is not just for the nutrients to be leveled off and correctly taken care of by the body, but it is also to help feed your dog's gut, right? So all of those bacteria that are supposed to be existing, and I wish you guys could see what I am seeing right now. It's so funny. My cats are again about to get in a fight. So you guys go fight over there. Thank you. But it's also to make sure that we're constantly putting in different foods to feed the bacteria that are hopefully existing in your dog's gut. Because most dogs, and this, I always tell my clients, take it off your plate. It's not your fault, but chances are your dog was born with a destroyed gut. And because maybe the breeder or wherever your dog came from, or maybe it came from the animal shelter and they just destroy their gut before anything can happen, like my little kittens, which hopefully I'm doing the best I can. I always tell people, if you're going to get a kitten from a shelter, ask them if it came from one of Carrie's litters, because I've bombarded them with good, healthy bacteria into their guts to try to set them up for success as best I can. So rotating food is okay for dogs' stomachs. I've heard it upsets their stomachs when we switch their food suddenly. So herein lies the problem. Yes, the answer is yes. It can upset the stomach, but from a holistic standpoint, which is where a lot of our vets are lacking right now, is the understanding. Yes, it can upset your dog's stomach, but it shouldn't. So if it does, then what is missing in your dog's gut? Because if we look at this from the wild, the animals, how they were supposed to handle stuff, and even you and I switch our diet. And I mean, sometimes, right, we eat something off that lunch truck and then our stomach hurts because our stomach's not used to it. But that's a gut issue. Your dogs should be able to rotate. So when you're doing these rotating things, go easy, because I don't want to see your dog have diarrhea at 4:00 in the morning. None of us do. That's awful. But if your dog has a healthy gut and he has the right bacterias and the right stomach acids and the right of everything, your dog should be able to eat like a wolf, like a coyote, like a fox, like a lion, like a tiger, like a cougar. They should be able to eat like that. They shouldn't be, oh my God, I can't eat the rabbit today because haven't had one and now my tummy hurts. They should be able to rotate and eat whatever they want. That's how nature has set them up to keep them healthy, to provide all of the nutrients. There is no such thing as a complete and balanced diet. I could formulate a diet for you today. I could sit down. I have the software. Actually, I think I stopped paying for it, but I had the software for years where I could formulate this diet based off of AVCO, which is a whole nother subject. And I could formulate diets for you, but I stopped doing it for the same reason I want us to stop saying kibble, it's better than kibble. I stopped formulating diets for people because they just got stuck on it. And they thought, that's what I feed my dog every day. And I know that that is creating a problem for their animal by not adding in all these different foods. Trust me, I don't know for sure, but I really feel like marketing companies did that to us. And now we've destroyed their, don't change your dog's food. Well, of course not, because if you don't change the food, then you're like a guaranteed customer. If I can convince you that this bag of food is what your dog should eat, that it's complete and balanced, that'll keep his teeth clean, that's the biggest hoopah that we ever fell for. And I was one of them that did it. So ease your dog into it. Make sure that he's got some good gut bacteria and wolf probiotics. I love Julianne. I swear we're going to go down into the wolves together. That's how I fell in love with her. I didn't realize how much she did some studying with wolves. But, so when we talk about probiotics, here's my take on probiotics. I think that your animals can be born with, but aren't born with, but could be born with a very healthy gut that could set them up for life if they were fed the proper nutrients. They would be able to have a healthy life for the rest of their life, for their whole life. I think that our wolves and our coyotes and our lions and tigers and bears and giraffes, for that matter, are born with healthy guts, and they replace and feed through the wild by walking through dirt and licking their paws. I think that they replace bacterias. They eat, like we know for a fact, mother wolves will eat their pups' poop and clean up the den. So I think that in the wild, they replace bacterias that they might be missing, and that's fine. But what happens here with our domesticated animals is that our domesticated animals are not only not having those bacteria replaced into their gut, but they are also given stuff that kills their gut. And I think there are two, I've talked a lot extensively about gut destroyers. And there are two that I think are by far the worst. And almost every single animal right now, of all of you guys that are talking to me, there is a high probability that your animal has had this. So I think the two worst gut destroyers out there are the dewormers that they use, which they use. I told you I have 4-week-old kittens right now. They've already had flea and tick stuff put on them and dewormer put on them, given to them. And then metronidazole. Those two things alone, I think, are ruining our animals' guts. So when we talk about probiotics, I always tell people, look at your dog's gut as a puzzle, as a giant puzzle, and each little piece needs to be filled with bacteria. Now, I can't open up your dog's gut and make sure each puzzle piece is taken. So I also don't know which ones are missing, right? So let's say this little puzzle piece up here at the top over here is missing, but I keep filling in more bacteria that is all of these, but that probiotic or that bacteria didn't have this one. So I never fill that spot. So what happens is a bad bacteria fills that spot. So what people ask me all the time, what I think about rotating bacteria, is absolutely 100%. I think you should rotate your probiotics. But then there's no point in rotating and giving a probiotic if we're not going to feed it, because it's a living organism and it needs to survive off of food. And so we know that prebiotics are very, very important, and making sure that you're feeding those prebiotics, and also making sure you're not doing anything to destroy the gut. That being said, I really don't think that animals have to have probiotics thrown on them once that gut is set up. But that's really hard to know how that is. I really encourage people to get an animal biome test and test your dog's gut to find out what it looks like, so that you have a starting point of where you're going with that. Like, am I just going to keep throwing bacteria at this dog without knowing what I'm adding? Because then you're just wasting your money, and you could be wasting valuable time. The other reason why I desperately want this industry, and when I say this industry, I'm really speaking to those of you who are actively wanting to educate people. But if we don't stop saying it's better than kibble, we're never going to get these guts under control. It's not going to happen. And so I'm going to keep taking you guys back to, please stop saying it's better than kibble, because it's not. And it's if it were working, because I know the idea behind that is that people are going to say, well, it's better than kibble. And then the person that they're trying to educate will maybe say, okay, well, it's better than kibble. And maybe but that's not what's happening. They're staying on it. Now, I always say this, look, if your dog I eat brownies every once in a while. When I'm traveling, I eat probably the worst I've ever eaten in my life. But I also live a lot longer, and I have time to fix it. Something else our animals don't have. Do you feed any extra colostrum? I don't, but I have it, and I have recommended it to some people, and it's worked for them. So I definitely see the benefits of it. I think animals who have had huge health issues for a long period of time, and we're I think colostrum's a really good thing to add in. I'm very fortunate with my pets. They've been on raw diet since day one, and they haven't had flea and tick stuff put on them. They haven't had, heartworm medication given to them. They've never been dewormed. They only had their parvo vaccines when they were puppies. So my dogs are set up in a way. But if you have an animal who's just been struggling, I think colostrum is a really good idea. Chopped garlic for fleas and ticks plus essential oils. What are your thoughts on dried garlic? I'm not sure about dried garlic. I know fresh garlic definitely has, although, that being said, there's a product on the market called Ashley's Natural Flea Product. And it's actually a liquid, and you pour it into your dog's food, which is surprising that these dogs love it, but they do love it. That one also has apple cider vinegar in it. And I have had amazing results with that stuff. So, and that's not freshly chopped garlic. So, can't really say much about that. Essential oils, I stay away from talking about because it's weird for me. I deal with a lot of allergy dogs, a lot. That is the skin's microbiome. If someone's going to say to me, Carrie, what's your specialty? Like if you had to pick one thing, I would tell you, bring me all of your itchy skin problem dogs. Bring me those guys. Those are like, I will sit with them and work with the itchy skin dogs all the time. So when you talk about essential oils, and I think they're great. Don't get me wrong. I think essential oils are great and they have a place for our animals, but I also worry because you have to treat the animal that's in front of you, not just blanket across the board. So I have had a lot of animals that have reactions, and usually that's because people are burning it in the house too much, and it becomes overwhelming because our animals have a very sensitive olfactory glands. And so especially our cats, I don't know if you guys know this, but these little guys can smell far better than our dogs can. Far better. It's crazy. So you can get animals who are just really sensitive to it. So I really kind of stay out of the essential oils thing, because a lot of times I have to tell people, are you burning these in your house? And if you are, you need to stop when I'm dealing. But then again, there are tons of people who get really good benefits from essential oils when their dogs do have allergies. So it's kind of something I don't really comment too much on. I don't diffuse any oils in my home. Yeah, I don't either. Just because, it's hard. Our animals can't talk to us. They can't say, every time you burn that, I get a headache. And so I'm really careful with anything that I use. Although, like I said, I use a cream at work when I do a nail, I'll call it a pedicure. I don't want to call it a podicure because I always think that's a little cheesy. But I also don't want to call it a nail trim because I don't trim nails. But when I am doing a dog's paws, and when I do your dog's nails, I do everything. So I do the pads and the nails, and then I take a cream that I have, and it has some essential oils. It has a little bit of tea tree oil in it, and shea butter and some stuff. And I will put that all around their toenails to try to prevent any kind of funguses and stuff, because they walk through so much stuff and they pick up all sorts of fungus and stuff. So I will put that all over their nails and under their pads. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm against essential oils. It's just not my expertise. I have not done that much studying on it, so I'm careful not to talk about it. But like I said, I've seen so many amazing stuff with it. So, use one of the experts. There's lots of people out there. I know Dr. Josie Bug is very into some essential oils. And I think there's a couple of really amazing veterinarians that are amazing and can answer any essential oil stuff that's in there. Did I miss any questions? I hope not. Fresh garlic, ticks. Yep. So I hope, guys, oh wow, it's 5:20. I didn't realize how late it was. If anything has happened through this little talk, and I'm so glad that you guys came on and took this time to talk with me, because I'm just tired of it. I am so what to look for in commercial foods to determine fat, protein, carb content, guaranteed analysis, dry matter as fed. Okay, Ellen, here's the thing. You're never going to know. You're never really going to know. I hate, I know that's very blunt, but I used to chase that where I was obsessed with finding out exactly what it was. And ultimately it just, I don't want to say it didn't matter, but I knew I couldn't get to the truth. It's almost impossible, and how they can manipulate it and do things. And that's why it's so important to me. There is a dry matter. You can go and there's an app for finding out the dry matter, and you take in all the numbers. And I used to know all the numbers back when I took my certification with Dogs Naturally. They had a whole bunch of calculators, and I learned how to do all of that kind of stuff. And ultimately, it just seemed like a huge waste of time, because I really wanted to start teaching my clients about doing these rotation diets. And And that's when you know your dog's gut is pretty damn healthy, because he can rotate his diets and he can do all of that kind of stuff. So, oh, you like Tuesday evenings? I might start doing Tuesday where it's just kind of me and not somebody, because trust me, every day I have something that I want to talk about, to try to help your animals. What probiotic products do you recommend? So I actually, there's three that I like, but it depends on the situation, Lily. So just like people ask me all the time, what foods do I carry? I carry the craziest random stuff that if another pet nutritionist came into my store, they would think I don't know what I'm doing. But for me, I want to do the best I can for the dog in front of me and the client in front of me, because I don't want to chase a client away if I can help them. So I carry a lot of things that some nutritionists would think we're crazy. One of those is Stella and Chewy's. A lot of people look at me like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about if you're still selling Stella and Chewy's. But sometimes I have people in front of me who, oh my gosh, thank you, that are just scared out of their mind to feed a raw diet. And Stella and Chewy's has been HPP'd. And so a lot of people want to stay away from that. They are like, oh my God, that's HPP. I can never feed that to my animal. That's just, whatever. They're not wrong, but at the same time, I love that Stella and Chewy's is HPP, because then I can actually get a pet owner to feel a little bit more confident. And a lot of reasons why they're scared. And this is a legitimate reason, right? Like, we can't say this isn't a legitimate reason. I've used this example before, but if you have a child, little 3-year-old little girl, and you have a golden doodle, and your little 3-year-old's constantly playing up in her mouth, and you feed a fully species appropriate raw diet, who's to say that your little girl isn't going to get some of that food and she's going to eat it? And now, that being said, know that a lot of these raw diets are tested and they're fine, but this gives a little bit more peace of mind. So it kind of bumps us up. So the same thing with probiotics. I recognize that some dogs do better with this than that, and that with this, and maybe a little less of this, and maybe this one's too strong for them, and maybe this one's not strong enough. There's so many different reasons. But in general, of course, I like anything that Julianne Lee creates. She's amazing and spends an enormous amount of time studying and understanding the gut. And she's the reason why I am as far along in my education as far as understanding the gut, is because of Julianne Lee. I also really, really like using Animal Biomes, makes a fecal transplant, and those are directly from the poop from healthy tested animals. So she uses donor dogs and she's a wonderful scientist. She's a microbiologist. So a lot of studying has gone in there. She uses Dr. Roman Margot's dogs, who have all been tested, and it's just amazing. So, and then I can alternate a little bit. I like to use, I know not everybody loves this company, but I do. 4-Leaf Rover, I really like. I also like using some of the stuff from Mercola, from Dr. Karen Becker's line. Those are fine. I love, love, love using raw goat's milk. It's one of my favorite, because to me, that is in the most purest form. So raw, unpasteurized, kefir, goat's milk, those kind of things, I think that is, in my opinion, the purest form of a probiotic, right? Because we haven't done anything to it. It comes straight from the goat, and then we freeze it. And it's just, those are kind of the best thing. And I like to do little goat cheeses and those kind of things to try to get the probiotics in there. Should we rotate them? Absolutely. Absolutely. We should rotate them, and we should be making sure we're feeding a lot of fiber. That's your prebiotics. Bananas are a really great prebiotic. So any of those kind of things I think are amazing in order. I mean, the reality is our animals don't live very long. They just don't. And that's why I cannot stand the bet it's better than kibble. They don't live a long enough. They live a long enough. I can't even speak. They don't live long enough, and they're never going to. But if we can add a couple more years by not just, oh, I'll try this food and see how it works out, it's not going to work out. And by the time you find out that it didn't work out, it's too late to fix the problem. And that, I think, my friends, is probably my biggest problem with saying it's better than kibble. We don't have time. I don't have time to fix it. So if you're going to feed the it's better than kibble, don't do it very often, please. Try to get some organ meat in your dog's food. The it's better than kibble type foods are almost, I've never seen any of them with organ meat in it. I know there is one company that you can get organ meat, but you're going to pay an exorbitant amount of money when you could get from a company that is less. BJ's Raw is a really, I don't carry that company. I don't know why I'm not. I need to. I think it's just, it starts to get to a point where I just have so many different raw companies, but BJ's Raw is another really fabulous company that I think has a really good price point that you could be getting organ meat from. So there's so many different things that you guys can do for your animals. And I'm not here to say, if you guys learn anything from me, I am not here to say that, you have to do everything this way or you're a bad pet parent. What I am trying to say is this is the way I've seen with my experience to have the healthiest animals. And if you can incorporate that a little bit every once in a while, even, then you're doing better by your animals. But if I am to say, and I know that most people put their dogs on the same food over and over and over. So if I know that, then I can't say it's better than kibble. So I won't say it. It's not better than kibble. I could say it over and over again. It's not better than kibble. It's causing the same problems, or it's perpetuating the same problems. I'm not seeing animals get better. I know a lot of vets are saying, oh, well, I saw the dog get better. I argue, did you really, or did his energy level go up? Because that probably will happen. His energy level will go up a little bit because the carbohydrates are probably not as much as the processed food. Open Farm is one of the foods that I carry. Of course, I don't carry their kibble. So a lot of people don't like Open Farm. When I look at Open Farm, and the reason that I carry Open Farm, I carry their frozen food, is this is going to sound weird, but I told you guys, I feed for the animal and the animal in front of me and the animal's issues. If I have a dog who comes to me who's fresh off of pancreatitis, has spent a week in the hospital on IVs and is just awful condition, and now has had so much antibiotics thrown at him and so much crap thrown at him, and somebody comes to me and says, the vet says that my dog has to be on this prescription diet, but I looked at the ingredients and it makes me want to gag. What would you suggest? Believe it or not, Ellen, a lot of times I will suggest Open Farm. And there's two reasons for that. One, Open Farm is a cooked food. And two, Open Farm doesn't use bone in their food or eggshell. So I have found in my experience that bone, which I think is awesome, but bone is really hard to digest. And so we know that the pancreas excretes all of these digestive enzymes. And so I need something that is very easy to digest. Now, would I suggest that somebody always do Open Farm forever and ever? No. But I would do an Open Farm over doing one of these junky prescription foods. So yes, I carry Open Farm, but only for those reasons. But if somebody comes into me, super healthy dog, and they're not interested in something like that and they want to do species appropriate, then I'm not going to recommend the Open Farm. But I see anywhere between 40 to 60 dogs a day, and all of them, I've seen every scenario there is available out there. Every single scenario you can possibly imagine, I've been faced with. So I set my store up in a way that I can cover all of these different scenarios in the healthiest way possible. Open farm, their raw freeze dried is great too. Many say because has vitamins, minerals added, not the best. See, you're right. And that is one of the reasons though why I do carry it, because I agree. I am not, people know, I think your animals should get their best sources of nutrients from the food, the whole food. But sometimes that whole food, for example, the nutrients of calcium comes from bone. And when I have an animal who is having trouble digesting bone, then I need to come up with something best. So that's when I use stuff like that. So VA doesn't accept titers. Agree, open farm. Yeah. A lot of people don't accept the titers. That's a whole nother, like, that's what we should talk about next week. Carrie's pissed off at the whole vaccine thing because that's the more reason why your animals have to eat healthy, because they are coming harder. They're about ready to start making it a requirement that your animals have to get a leptospirosis vaccine. That's coming. Be prepared for it. I'm telling you, it is coming. Your dogs will be forced to get a leptospirosis vaccine, just like they're forced to get a rabies vaccine, and they're not going to accept a titer. So if there is a very good reason why to feed your animals species of, I swear I have so much hair still all over me. That is another good reason, because there's some things that we can't get away from. And so we have to pay attention to the things that we can and what we can do. So it's super important that we're feeding our animals the best that we can. The over vaccines are absolutely, I agree, Lily. I'm really careful with that. I don't know your thoughts on it. I respect everyone's thoughts on it. For me, I will tell you this about vaccines. I really do believe that there are ways to protect your animals from getting sick without being vaccinated. I absolutely believe that. Meaning, I think that if you were a person who wanted to take those precautions to do all of the right things, there's things called nose dose that you could look into, then you could go your whole life without vaccinating your dog. Am I an advocate for it? No. And this is why, because most people won't follow all of the rules for that. And if they don't follow all of the rules for that to protect your animals from diseases like parvo, then their dogs are going to die from parvo. So I have to be really, really careful, because I talk to a broad number of people. When I'm speaking to you guys, I'm not speaking to just one person like Lily who would do all of these things. And not that the person that doesn't do all of those things is a horrible person. It's just they may not understand or know or feel comfortable with or have the resources. Some people don't have the resources to do all of the stuff that needs to be done. And so I have to, as a whole, I want to protect our animals. So I speak out on not over vaccinating our dogs, and that I'm a supporter of getting the parvo vaccine, because I have seen an enormous amount of dogs die from parvo, and I've had them die in my arms with parvo. And so I'm against over vaccinating our dogs. And I would tell you that probably 95% of the dogs that come to my facility at the spa are over vaccinated. And despite my communications, my talking, my everything that I've done, I still can't seem to get, and I get it. It's mostly out of fear. I hate that, but it is, our animals are over vaccinated mostly because of fear of the parent being in a confrontation with the veterinarian. I guarantee that's the number one reason why our dogs are over vaccinated, because we're afraid to speak up. We don't want confrontation. We've heard it, we know it, but we don't want. How many people now are lying to their vets about their dogs eating a raw diet? We don't even talk about that. We don't tell our vets, oh, my dog eats. Well, not anymore. But in the very beginning, before I found the vet that I have now, I didn't tell the vet what I fed my dog because I don't want to hear it. And the same thing's happening with vaccines. We don't want to tell our vet that we don't want to vaccinate for, let's say, Bordetella, because we don't want to hear the vet tell us, why we're wrong and all of these things. So we just say, okay. So it's difficult. It's really difficult, but we need to get up and speak about it. So I only get the rabies by law. I'm stuck. No, I hear you. We're all stuck. That's what I'm telling you. I'm so afraid of, and I know it's coming. Pretty soon, it will be the law that your dog has to have a leptospirosis vaccine. I guarantee you that the drug companies are already working on it. I absolutely 100% guarantee it. Mark my words. I think it'll happen in the next probably 5 to 7 years. Amazing story about a homeless man and his dog. He was never vaccinated and he was healthy because the homeless man couldn't afford to go to the vet. That's so funny. I actually have said that to some of my clients. I had a client one time, a long time ago. She came in and she was so cute. And she says, "You're going to hate me. I'm so sorry. Please don't be mad at me. But I don't have the money to go to the vet. So my dog's never been vaccinated." And I just giggled and I said, "Isn't that funny? The most compliant pet parent, the pet parent who goes to the vet every year, does exactly everything that the allopathic vet tells us to do. Those are the unhealthy vets. But the animal that was sitting in front of me had no skin problems, no skin ear infections, nothing. Exactly. And I don't want to encourage you never going to your veterinarian, but certainly, it's interesting when you look at that to cats, right? So dogs go to the vet far more than cats do, far more often than cats do. A lot of people don't even tell anybody that they have cats, so they never went to the vet, so they don't get those cards in the mail that tell them, "Oh, your animal's due for vaccines, blah blah blah." So it's interesting, our cats don't have nearly the same health problems as our dogs have. And I often wonder if it's because they don't go to the vet as often, so they don't get this constant bombardment of all this stuff they have to have. So, but anyway, we can't go too far off on that because we'll have to save it for next Tuesday. But I'm so glad that you guys were here. I hope that talk on kibble has given you guys a little encouragement to stop saying it's better than kibble. It's not. It's not better than kibble. So we just need to stop saying it. Just like we stopped saying this kibble's better than that kibble. We did it. We did it as a group. We stuck together. And we stopped saying, "Oh, this kibble's better than that kibble." We all did it. So now all we need to do is stop saying it's better than kibble. So Lori, can you write that phone number down for me, please? Lori's in the background for me, so she'll write it down because I'll maybe be able to find it. So anyway, I hope that we can stick together. And when you guys are on these Facebook groups and you keep hearing it's better than kibble, type in, maybe we need a hashtag. It's not better than kibble. Maybe we need a movement. Maybe we need, I don't know, I'll be the leader. I don't care, but it's not better than kibble. We have to stop letting them, it's more marketing, right? It's more marketing. Oh, it's whole fresh food. It's a human grade. Well, it's like, I remember back when people used to say, "It's all natural." And I would say, I got to come up something for the kibble, but people would go, "Well, it's all natural." And I would say, "So is heroin. So is heroin. Do you want to feed that to your animal?" So maybe we need to come up with something like a code word for it's not better than kibble. What is it? INBK. I think that's what it is. I don't know. I'll come up with something. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Don't forget, tomorrow's the Two Crazy Cat Ladies at 4:00 right here. We're going to be talking a lot about kitty cats, and we'll talk a little bit about some things you can do with your cats. They're just amazing. You're going to have so much fun with these two. They're so fun. I'm excited. You guys should be excited too. Even if you don't have cats, they have a lot of information. So just if you're thinking about getting a kitty or you don't have a kitty, but you want to learn something, they're really, really, really good at just pretty much everything, but cats are their specialty. So we'll be talking about those guys tomorrow. And then we have Dr. Canizero coming up. We have a couple of vets coming up in the near future every Wednesday at 4:00. I will try to, on Tuesdays at 4:00, do a little bit more like this. With you guys. So it's so fun. If you guys have any topics that you want to talk about, you want me to nail, just let me know, reach out to me, and I am always here. Best way to contact me though is through the spawdogs@gmail is a really good way. You can always call the spa. That phone number I think Lori put on here is 714-669-9074. You can give me a call there. You can actually set up a nutrition consult with me anytime. You can do that through the website. If you really want to just sit down, have me look at all of your dog stuff and go over everything more on a personal case, I can absolutely do that for you guys. So it's all just very, very exciting. And don't forget, next year, we're going to be doing that live event as well. Again, if you missed that, I am so sorry that you missed it. It is on a recording though. If you want to watch that, I highly recommend that you guys get that. It was really great. It shows everything too for the day. Even the memorial is on that video. So, and there's a bonus talk from a specialty veterinarian that came on that did a little bonus talk for us about dentals and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, guys, thank you for being here. Wonderful, wonderful questions. It's not better than kibble. I'll leave you guys with that. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Lori is in the background, and she's the one typing all the stuff for you guys because I am just not coordinated enough to think and type at the same time. So she does all of that. She's just been fabulous. And so I hope you guys enjoyed this evening, got all the information that you need. And I will see you guys tomorrow night at 4 o'clock. Bye, everybody. Take care.